Hi, I'm your host, Anand Jai Sugrim, and this is the Limitless One podcast. Join me on this journey as I interview the most inspirational souls who are tapping into their limitless blueprint on a mental, physical, and spiritual level to thrive in uncertain times. If you feel you are so much more than just this body, just this life, and want to tap into your limitless potential, you're in the right place. Here we go, starseeds.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. On this episode, I speak for the second time with Anand Jai Sugrim, who hosts the Limitless One podcast and owns the Om Life Wellness Spa in New Jersey, right outside of the city in Jersey City. Anand is a new friend, and I enjoy our conversations because he is completely aligned with his purpose in the sense that he's offering meaningful work to the world while he sustains himself and creates his livelihood. He's a guy that's in alignment with purpose, and he has a really open mind, and he creates a space for me to be myself and to learn from him. So I think this time of the pandemic creates a lot of this cloud of darkness that can overcome anyone's mind. And I was yearning for a meaningful conversation, which is what's great about the podcast, is this ability to tap into someone's universe and listen to their points of view and see how it might influence your own sense making. So we speak a lot about the divine feminine, our relationships with our partners, and how this is opening up doorways into the way we view ourselves and our evolution of our manliness and male chronology, and our purpose being influenced by the women we are with. And we also talk about finding light in the darkness. There are so many incongruent stories swirling around in the media, in society, in local communities. Families have been coming apart at this time and being divided. And he and I realized that none of this is supposed to make sense, and that there's another way to ride the wave by trusting yourself, trusting your spiritual practice, in addition to speaking with those that are open to changing their points of view. So this was a really fun conversation, and I see myself as a guy on a journey. So a lot of my ideas are not totally worked out. I'm exploring them through dialogue with really interesting people. And I hope you enjoy looking into Anand and I's friendship and our world, and share this conversation with as many people as would benefit from an enlightening, fun discussion between two friends. What's up, man? How are you?
Good, brother.
It's good to see you. Just tell people how little we know each other, and how our connection is more through being in the health sphere, but actually we're just developing a friendship, and it started more digitally by following each other's work.
Yeah, I think we did meet initially in person at Yoga Fest. I think it was in Jersey City like a couple of years ago, and we had a nice conversation. I invited you to come and float, so I know you have a good influence in society, and your yoga teacher, very popular yoga teacher. So I was like, okay, let me invite this influencer over to my place so he can spread the word about Om Life, and it turned into more. I started seeing your posts, really seeing the depth of how you think, and really appreciated that. So I invited you on my podcast a couple years later, as we were like, looking at each other on the gram and stuff like that, and seeing each other's posts, and they resonate on so many levels. So we had that conversation a couple months ago. I think you were one of my first guests, I think, or one of the few first guests. Anyhow, it went phenomenal, and then we became friends. And I came to visit you a couple weeks ago up in your place in upstate New York, which now you just recently moved. But yeah, man, it's been pleasure getting to know you, bonding with you that day, and kicking your ass in basketball.
Well, it's not done. There's going to be another round of hoops. But yeah, man, I like once I got to know your personality, the questioning nature of your personality, that resonates with me. I don't think we have to have answers. I think in life, if you're looking for meaning, you can just ask questions. I just had a call with a father. And this is like a pet talk for me to have a conversation with you tonight, because we're on such a similar wavelength, that I'll get good ideas. But this father called me to help him with his son. His son is 16, has been completely disinterested in school, almost flunked out of making it to a junior, but summer school was helping. And the world is just getting stranger and stranger and stranger. And here's this dad trying to carry his son through adolescence, and he's reaching out for a helping hand. And what came through to me is how much of our life is routine, and routine is good to an extent, like it builds healthy habits. I know you wake up early, and you and Kate try to go to bed at a really reasonable time. You have those habits are good, but we also need this sense of adventure, right? And we need to break the pattern. And you go inside, you broach the interior, which is a source of adventure too. Because when I was young, I would travel the world to have my adventures. And I'm still young, but I'm attracted to staying in one place now and having adventures with my eyes closed. Like before this call, I just did another round of my mantra I got a very productive day. I'm coming for an adventure to the city to see you guys tomorrow. And I got this extra round on the japa in, and like my devotion to the spirit, because so much of our freedoms seem to be getting clamped down, and you're going for it, like you're really going for it. You're doing meaningful work. You know what it is to be in alignment. Like I look at the skeleton as a yoga teacher, and I see a lot of work to be done in terms of lining up with the earth and the heavens. But there's also body, mind, and spirit, and that sense of purpose. And like when you came to the house and we were around the fire and just sharing very simple food, I felt that passion. So I wanted to talk to you again. And here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And you created such a beautiful sanctuary up there. I'm sad that it's gone, and I only got one chance to go up there. But the place that you created with the running stream, obviously you didn't create the running stream, but having tents all around, having fire, cooking the most amazing, delicious food. I mean, just the whole day was magical. And it really is different from living in a city, in a high-rise city, walking on concrete all the time. And you had that experience, and then just taking a day to just unplug. And I had so many things going on, but I said, because I'm so inundated with my busyness, I need to go and take a step out and go and visit nature and go visit you. And it was just what I needed. It was right before I went on a crazy couple of weeks of moving I moved my condo to a new apartment. I went to Ohio to visit my girlfriend's parents for the first time. So there's a lot of things in a whirlwind going on, and so many things that I needed to take care of before and afterwards. And it was really nice to get out there and to connect.
Did it go well with the family? That's always anxiety filled sometimes.
Yeah, you know what? They're wonderful, wonderful people, and I am so blessed that I got to meet them. It's crazy because whenever I introduce somebody to my family, I'm like, okay, these are they're not normal, just like no one's family is normal, right? But she also felt the need to tell me, oh, just like all these like things to put in my mind, because this is her perception of her family, which they're wonderful people. So I went there and I thought I would have nothing to talk about with them based on the way that she described them. And like, I had the greatest time with every single one. Like, so I got to meet her wonderful sister and her husband and their kids. We played basketball together, and we talked like the sweetest people. They live out in Cincinnati. Then I got to meet the parents a couple hours later, the nicest people. We were playing ping pong and talking about all different things. And, they just, everybody that I met just has a good heart. And really, as long as people have good hearts, then they're my people. And, it doesn't matter what their philosophies are on life, as long as they love life, they want to see people do well, and they want to do well themselves. Those are the types of people that I connect best with.
Yeah, it's funny how the web expands once you meet the family, and there's a sense of meaning for men who are at 40 and have that connection with a partner that's deeper, because we've evolved through time to have something to protect and defend and to share and create, and you're creating together. And it's a new level that when I'm single, I find it really distracting. There are times in my life where I thought, oh, this is really fun. This is great. And the freedom that comes like is exhilarating in your 30s, that you could just pick up, put a book pack on and ride a motorcycle 6 months through India because you don't have a family. Like that phase of life is incredible. Like to go to Peru to sit with a shaman because you are compelled to do that. But when you start making compromises and you start doing things lovingly just for the sake of doing them and doing a nice thing without wanting something in return, right? Like, I like how my energy is more directed and completely focused now. And I can start to feel that in my coaching and in my business. Like, there's a really rooted, more mature headspace that when I'm single is so hard to keep consistent. I'm like off and on. Do you ever feel that way?
Yeah, 100%. So I was engaged about 4 years ago, maybe five. I don't even know anymore. Right before I opened my business, and there was a breakup. It didn't work out, and I wish the person well, but it wasn't a great breakup. And after that, I'm like, okay, why am I going to invest all my energy and my time into something? Why don't I just be myself and just enjoy life and have the most richest life with the best adventures and the experiences that I want? And I did that, and I had a great experience for 3.5 years. And then when I met my girlfriend Kate, who's my life partner, she adds so much richness into my life. And I think that's where, what you mentioned about like having a purpose and then being more directed in your energy and what you want to create. When your home life is, there's a good comfort level and you're not always seeking something else, because that's a distraction too. Is like if you're dating and something, you stop dating one person, you go to the next. There's a lot of energy into every one of those channels. But when you have somebody that you connect with mentally, physically, and spiritually, and you feel that it's in your heart, and this way you don't have to worry about that stuff when you're out there in the world trying to create the magic that you want to create, because that's already settled. So I feel like I have so much more support in my life, and I couldn't be more blessed, and I just walk around with more happiness and more bliss. And yeah, it's an amazing feeling, and I don't think I've ever experienced that before. It took me a long time to kind of figure out myself, understand who I am, what my purpose is in this life, till my mid 30s. And once I kind of understood that, and then got into now the ideal relationship for me, now I know like I'm set on this rocket ship, and the only thing that's going to stop me is myself, because everything that I need to be happy is already inside of me.
Yeah, I remember having a client. I used to work as a personal trainer, like and massage therapist throughout my 20s. And this woman I trained was very successful, very knowledgeable, and had these nuggets of wisdom she dropped on my 25-year-old brain. One day she said, women get married when they fall in love, and men get married at the right time, like when it's time, right? And I think we're not married, you and I, but we're on that path probably, most likely, because we're in really stable relationships. But what's helped me is I've never felt like more of myself. I've hidden parts of myself before on the veneer, charming stories, being super nice, and I'm overall well-rounded, so I have many skills that are on the veneer. But I've had to experience, I've felt ashamed about certain sides of myself, or things that have happened in my family story, tragedies, like really horrible tragedies. And I've never been able to like just expose myself, I never did it with a bleeding heart or sobbing or crying or saying, I'm sorry for myself. I'm like, well, that is my experience. And I had to get into my 40s to be comfortable with those were vehicles for me to develop and grow into the man I am now. That why do I want to hide that stuff? Why do I want to
And in exposing some of my shadow, it assuages the bite. So I don't get crippled or brought to my knees. And I've never had this level of togetherness, but also very much grounded in who Jai is as an individual. Like there's a lot of passion, yet mutual respect for each other. And that is really enlightening to me. It gives me renewed faith in what is possible between a man and a woman, like the polarity. And, one other thing is like, we both strategize and plan about how we want to live, like what standards are important for us, like what defines success. For example, she's fully aware that I need to do this kind of work, the spiritual work. I'm not going to switch into something. So I think of what's the best way to optimize my passion, because my life is about being aligned with what I love, right? So there's just spaces that are opening up for me that I've never touched before with a partner. And to me, to have that adventure in human relationships still going on, and not to get bored and write people off or say all women are this or all men are that. It's kind of a brilliant time, like as a teacher, to have the universe teaching you so much through your partner. It's the meaning of the tantra. I explain it very liberally, like tan is to stretch. And I blur the word tra to be traverse, to stretch the idea of oneness through the polarity, through all things. So that the man and woman blanket their mind in balancing the opposite of each other's energy. Like I find my gentleness in the way I care. Oh, massage, dude. Massage is huge for us. Like if I'm crushed, she'll give me a killer head rub and neck rub. Like I've shown her, and she has natural ability. And I've been massaging for 26 years. So we trade body work. And that is like deeper sometimes than sex. Like I just completely gave in the other night. Like she came here because she was working in Kingston, managing the Kingston dispensary. And I was like, I've worked all day, babe. I'm completely pooped. And she just, instead of making love, we just massage. And my mind went completely blank. And I can't tell you how intimate that is that we get to do that for each other. And sometimes I'll cook her noodle. I'll put her on my table for 2 hours and she goes into outer space. Kind of like maybe where you go when you do those long floats. Mm-hmm. Like it's like a psychedelic experience. Like she has those. And that, I think that connection, that type of selflessness when you got to get out of the way when you do a massage, So doorways into myself are opening through her. It's cool.
Yeah, for sure. That's beautiful. And, I really believe, because I've had a lot of experience with dating and whatnot. I think selection is 95% of the game. You can, you can meet the perfect person, but if they're not perfect for you, and if you're not perfect for them, then it could cause, it might not work out. And, we're these infinite beings. We have so much potential to do whatever the hell we want to do and create the magic that we want. And then you and I have both tried to do that on our own, and we have successfully on many levels. But also finding a partner that can help facilitate or hold space for you to grow into even better version of yourself than you would grow exponentially with the right partner versus doing it on your own. And I'm not knocking single people who are able to be very successful on their own. And I've done that for a very long time, but there's no comparison when you're in the right partnership, this divine romance. It is indescribable on how you feel and how you move through the day and how you walk and how your posture is and so many things. Your health is better. You have more endorphins. You produce more great hormones. There's all of that.
Yeah, the energy of love transforms your immune system. Think about it. Fear in your body or love in your body. Your brain is sending signals and the endocrine system is responding to love. And I don't know that I would have fared that well in the pandemic, the lockdowns, if I didn't have the support of a partner. And that's a weird thing to admit, because I like to play the tough guy. I'm like Mr. Independent. I can spend a couple of years being single. I like to travel alone, but I really think my mental health was tested, particularly around February, which was cold and dark and long and didn't make any sense. And I watched my mind get the most of me sometimes, as I did a lot of deep digging and research, and her shining positive energy. And, you know, I joke, teamwork and theme work, you know, there's team, TEAM, and the theme is loving each other. But that is so nourishing, especially during a crazy, crazy time like the last year. And you guys also deepened your connection, just like Sang and I, during, oh my God, we're twins. We're Indian, and we moved in with our girlfriends at the same time. And
pretty much, yeah. So when did you start?
And we both play hoops. Oh my God, dude.
Soul brothers, my friends. No, so I met Kate actually prior to the pandemic, but she was a client of mine, and we were just like friendly. There was nothing going on, and then during the pandemic, we exchanged a few messages, over Instagram, and we both were like kind of isolating, and we're like, okay, let's go for a walk, and like, just turned into one walk into like walking pretty much every week, and then every day, and then just developing such a strong affinity for each other. And she was going through her stuff, I was going through my stuff, and to go through a pandemic, to be isolated, it would have been really hard for me, for sure, because I'm such a proponent for human connection. I love people. I want to hug everyone, and I still do, and I did throughout the pandemic. Fuck fear. Like I'm here to create more love in the world and to experience love. And to do that, one of my biggest purposes in life is to connect with my soul brothers and sisters. So that's like oxygen for me. So to be able to have that during this time, it also gave me it allowed me to be more tender. And I didn't have my business to focus on and kind of be like 100% in, because I was closed down for 3 months. And during that time, I was so present. I was like having beautiful days, like just working on stuff. I was doing a small little podcast for my business, and getting to know Kate. And like time didn't exist at that time. We were just floating on a cloud the whole year. And not to discount COVID and all the stuff that happened, and whatever people want to make of it, but it was actually one of the best years of my life in terms of fulfillment, in terms of happiness.
Brilliant. I couldn't believe how lucky we got, because that is a completely different path. Anand, I want to back up with the sense of adventure, and what I see in you is basically a classic nonconformist. You're in the culture, but you're not sucked in by the culture. And so we have to admit that to an extent, it's inescapable. Like if we look at some of the things we learned to desire, the things we desire from the culture. If we were born in another culture in a different time, like in India, people value chastity. They brag about their virginity, and sometimes you're looked down upon in certain circles. And in the West, of course, as a guy, I started having sex late. For an athlete, 17 years old is very late for an athlete. All my friends got the game started earlier. So we learn so much from our culture. But I remember in college, right, I read this book as a senior. I went on interviews, and I was getting sick at the idea of being in this office, and 5 years you get the quarantine. It all got spelled out for me as to how it would be if I went in the corporate world. And I read this book by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called Flow, and then his subsequent book, Finding Flow. And it was all about, he was the first guy to begin studying flow states, which we know Michael Jordan taps into, Steph Curry taps into, the Navy SEALs, when they're at war, tap into it. It's just the highest possible optimal state of performance. And the correlates he was finding in his observation of people were that those who were connected, he had the data on those who were happy with what they were engaged with what they were doing. It could be rock climbing, they could be starting their business, whatever work they were doing, task, their level of engagement. Those people had the longest, most fulfilling, happiest lives. And he studied them over a broad period of time. So I read that book. I saw the depression I was getting into. It was the only time in my life to this day I've had a depression that long. I stayed in bed for a month. All my A's went to like C's and C pluses, and the teachers were very generous to pass me. They understood what I was going through. But it was then that I broke and realized how much I love working with the human body, and that there was a mystery there for me to uncover. And the things I had learned up till 22, with my body always adapting to the stress load I put on it, whether it was running, weightlifting, or martial arts, it always changed. And I wanted to demystify that. So I went right into personal training when it wasn't a career. And I always kept asking questions, and I would find masters throughout my life to submit and learn from, whether it was a shaman or an Ashtanga yoga teacher or a Sanskrit master. I sense their level of accumulated practice, and I try to learn. I look at my life as a game, as a giant adventure. And at that time, when I was a senior, I heard in a commencement speech this phrase by Helen Keller, that's life is a daring adventure or nothing at all. Mm-hmm. Right. And it just reverberated and just kept running around my consciousness. And I met this guy, Anil Gupta. I said, I have to put that on my body. And he put it in Sanskrit. It's my first tattoo.
Dude, first of all, Anil Gupta is on the east side of Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
That's where I got my tattoo.
Yeah, when Anil started, that's so weird. He's tattooed you?
So his one of his tattoo artists went. He did, John Paul Bonanno.
What a trip to find out right now.
That's crazy. Well, no, it doesn't. I mean, for me, like synchronicity is just.
I know, but it's brilliant.
Right? Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing because that was so long ago. That was 1997.
That's crazy.
Anil on me.
Anil, he's a very famous guy. He like tattooed.
Now he's famous.
He's tattooed Seal and Heidi Klum.
Oh, yeah. But that, I needed a guy that knew the Sanskrit. And the word he chose was romancha. And it means, so he phrased it this way so it would work in Sanskrit. Life without romance/adventure is meaningless. And I didn't know as a young kid that this was becoming my life metaphor. It was like, so you could think life is a bowl of cherries. Why am I always in the pits? That metaphor, whatever your metaphor is, you end up living out. But I brainwashed myself by burning that phrase in Sanskrit into my arm. And so much has unfolded. And part of that is the questioning. And whenever I speak to you, I see a guy that is not afraid to ask questions, because I think even bigger than the fear of death is the fear of going against the grain of the group, and I think that's what we're seeing right now is a very dangerous group think. And I get a breath of fresh air when I talk to him. I'm like, okay, he doesn't pretend to know the answer, but he's asking the same question and he smells something fishy. So, it's like, in a way, it might be my need for tribalism, but adventure, like you're asking the questions, so you're not becoming a slave to the tendencies of your mind, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that, being a nonconformist, I mean, that's a label, right? Like, but at the end of the day, like it just doesn't resonate to me when I was growing up and I saw all my friends and people that my parents knew, they were all becoming doctors and lawyers and finance people. And it just, I tried doing internships during college of, in the finance world. I worked at CIBC for a little bit, and the lifestyle, the people, the energy was down, down, down. It was all about how can I grab as much from this pie as I can and fuck everybody else. it was like, I was like, how do people even think like this? And growing up with a family where, I'm so blessed because I've never seen my parents do anything outside of integrity. All they did was help other people. And yeah, they got screwed a bunch of times, but it never stopped them from opening their heart and doing charitable work and helping whoever needed help because they wanted to do it because they know that it's good karma to do it and it resonates with them. So I was able to see this my entire life. So I grew up very innocent in the fact that like I didn't think there was bad people out there. But as you go through life and you start experiencing and realizing everybody does the best they can with the knowledge they have. But I also knew that it was at some point it's a cop out because we all have the ability to really do the inner work. And I was blessed with the opportunities to do a lot of self development. So every aspect and every year that I was in stuff, like I did like Tony Robbins courses, I've done, Landmark, I've worked with like New Peaks, which is a company called Peak Potentials previously. And I did almost 15 years of self development. So, like, all the different experiences, all the camps. I went to like sleepaway camp for like adults just to like go through like the most amazing experiences to push yourself outside of your comfort zones to really experience death and to be okay with it. And, through my ayahuasca and all these things, I'm just so passionately curious. And what drives me with my North Star is I know that there's something much greater than what I see in this physical body in this earth right here. I know that we're infinite souls. And I've always known that. And then when I had the experience with ayahuasca, it showed me just a little glimpse of what can be out there. And I know that I'm on the right path as long as I walk towards the light. And anything that is not truth, lately, especially, I've been able to kind of recognize, and I have to talk about it because I can't just let things around me deteriorate or people get so inundated with whatever they're hearing on the news. And I'm here to like experience this crazy time, and I know that we both signed up for this, but how can we be light bearers in this age of chaos, in this age of darkness, where there's so much that's contradictory to our highest self, our highest potential as human beings? If everyone unlocks that or just a little bit of our magic, then we wouldn't be having these problems. But why are we listening to people who are very, very dark in nature and they don't have the right intentions for humanity? They don't want united people coming together in love and togetherness and to contribution. They want people separated. They want people looking at each other as enemies. It's a very sad time that we live in, but what's a better time to live in than right now? If you're looking at a soul journey, if you live many multiple lifetimes, this is the ultimate testing ground. This is the ultimate battleground. If you want to reach moksha or nirvana or enlightenment, you have to walk through this darkness, and that's what we're doing right now. Who knows what's going to happen every single day, every hour? News changes and crazy things happen, and it might be designed to just fuck with our heads and to keep us spiritually closed-minded, or to keep us attacking our own soul in this perpetual thing where, oh wait, the science said this thing and then it contradicts itself, and then it contradicts itself. So you're kind of like, like doing mental gymnastics with everything that's going on right now, and you're trying to reconcile in your mind what actually makes sense. And the reality is nothing that's being told to us makes sense, and it's done that way on purpose to jumble and to scramble our minds. But if we don't allow that to kind of infiltrate and to seed inside of us, it's a weed that's growing in. So we have to stay true, we have to stay light and not take this stuff so seriously. We have to stay light as a feather in order to navigate this, because it really is a spiritual war that we're in.
I want to lay up into what I wanted to talk about, the spiritual warrior and the war on consciousness, because I have a very I want to dissect that and go very granularly deep into that. But I want to back up for a minute, because you have done a lot of personal development work. And I want to deconstruct one part of the path for people listening who sometimes get stuck in their own development is that there are infinite levels of consciousness. Like you and I feel like we've done all this work, but we feel like we're still at the very beginning, right? Like there's so much more that is possible. But I want to back up to that point where, like you described something about me, which is transforming your ability to speak freely to any woman you're attracted to in any setting, in any place, like to get that confidence, or to transform something like your health. You might be 30 pounds overweight and you're looking in the mirror and going, boy, the pandemic did a number on me. Or you're looking for a more enjoyable job, but you feel tied into your current level of income and you don't want to take a pay cut. There are difficulties, and I want you to talk about that moment where you feel the weight of the darkness and you feel the weight of inertia and you feel like, will I make it? But what gets you over that hump, you have to smash. Like guys like Goggins make it look easy. Stay hard. But no, you're alone in your house. You're the one looking in the mirror. You're the one who's got to get on the treadmill. You're the one who's got to go for a walk and take a hike. You're the one that's going to have to make that first move and make new friends after being isolated for a year. People are like socially bungled sometimes. So talk about that space of feeling the pain, but having to go through it anyway, because that's what I think is a sticking point for many of us.
Yeah, it all starts with belief systems, and what software program have you downloaded into your mind? So we have several, right? So like you brought up a couple of examples. What is your financial blueprint? Are you able to walk up to the girl that you want to ask out? All these are programs, right? And so at some point in our life, we adapted some of these programs, whether they're disempowering or whether they're empowering to us. So for that instance, you asked if you want to go up to a girl, and even if you force yourself to do it, but you don't truly believe that you can do it, it's going to show up in your world. It's going to resonate that way, and you're not going to be able to get a number, because you have to know with all your heart that this is going to happen, whether it's a business that you want to create, whether it's creating or making a relationship work. Obviously that takes two, but there has to be an intention set, and 100% commitment is the only way to success. You can't have 99% commitment and 1% doubt, because that doubt will germinate and it'll take over. So you have to be very mindful and dedicated to what is that you want to create in this world.
Yeah, I think doing things only when they're comfortable is a real tragedy. To train your brain to only, like, for example, work out on days you feel great. There's going to be a couple days where you don't feel great, but you got to saddle up. So these kind of things that we do with our bodies, like the yoga practice, teach us how to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. That's why I like to, body and mind are not separate to me. They auto enact and inspire one another in the loop, in a circle. So working with the body in asana transcends time if you link your breath properly with the movement. And what a treat to be off your phone and with yourself on your own mat, flowing in sync, disengaged from your whole outer life, like whatever's going on with the world, the news, the business. Which brings me to a really funny thing about the war on consciousness. I want to dissect this idea of how to act right now. It's very hard to decide how to act. I almost realized the last few days I'm coming to terms with the fact that we are deeply embedded in a battle, and that it's almost too late. We're almost out of time, and that it's best to, like, I don't think it's so liberating for me to not feel like the guy who has to sound alarm bells and wake people. Who am I to wake people up? Right? Like, so when I make a post, I'm so angry that Zach Bush, one of my heroes, the work Zach Bush is doing, right, inspires me so much. He's so heart-centered. Zach Bush started his career birthing babies, And then he went all the way in the full circle to hospice, to helping people die, and to bring life into this world with your hands and usher it out with your presence. The understanding and the compassion this guy has, like to watch him and the questions he's asking get censored. I almost found my violence and my anger, and that can come through in my work. And I'm like in a tough line of like wanting to express that, because my social feeds have become one slice of who I am, but I'm enraged that a brilliant, questioning, scientifically sound master of the endocrine system, master of immunology, cannot have a voice that just questions the one story we're all supposed to believe. That is such an egregious error in thinking. You would want to vehemently disagree and agree and be in debate to come to the right conclusions, which is why talking to you might autocorrect some of my ideas about spirituality and the path to enlightenment. Like, to be open is what the podcast has shown me, that I really need to be open to different opinions. And so it devastated me. I went to click on a link, something Zach posted, and it said, this is not available, violating guidelines. And I know that this guy is super, super scientific and in his heart. And this can be interpreted as nothing more than a desire to fully control humans. And the way to do that is not with bullets and tanks and bombs from the sky. You are a master if you can control the minds. And I'm starting to see it as so structured that it's occult. It's black magic. It's like spirituality, but from the dark force. And it's an epic meeting of darkness and light. And so I hope tonight I can get some insight from you on how much, like, the acceptance of this that's going on has freed me. The desire to not be the guy that wakes people up has freed me. But how much should I put my attention on just living my bliss, and how much should I put on staying informed? Like, I'm disappointed that I didn't get the Zach Bush lecture, and the same thing's happening to someone I really admire, a brilliant mind of our times. Brett Weinstein is getting entire podcast plug. So yeah. I'm looking at ways of communicating that can't be traced. And I'm looking at platforms that I can shift my media over, my show over, that I know support freedom of speech. I heard Adam Curry on Joe Rogan talking about, he's the first podcaster, and he started a whole thing of like, that's going to support freedom of speech and plug and play with the payment and the Patreon angle. So I'm going to start exploring ways of getting off mainstream platforms, because I think they're going to get every single person that doesn't march in line, and it's going to split into two types of people: those that conform and those that go underground. And I think I am not with all of the rules that are coming out. I'm not with it. I'm with humanity and freedom. And this is a structured war on the space in between our ears, for sure. It feels that way.
Yeah. People who have truth on their side, they don't need to censor anyone else. People who have truth on their side, they welcome all opinions, to understand, to come in from a humble place. I don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers. Let's try to figure out what a good solution to any problem that the world faces is, right? So when people are trying to ask those questions and they're getting censored, like Dr. Zach Bush, which when I listened to him the first time, I was in tears. I mean, the guy speaks with so much heart, so much love in his voice. And listening to people that speak of love, it's very easy to pick up that frequency, and I understand them. So I'm open to listening to them and to understanding them. And I've gotten so many great points and understanding and life lessons from people like that. Then there's the people that tell you, this is the way that it needs to be done. Don't ask any questions. Shut the fuck up. Put a mask on. Those are the people. I mean, let's just be clear here. When someone is trying to control you, they're taking away your divine spiritual freedom. to be a free soul, to be an individual who can think on their own. This happens in countries like North Korea or China when you get censored like that, when you're told how to think, how to act, what to do. Not here in the United States. And when it's happening here, you have to ask the question, what is the agenda? Where are they trying to lead this place? Why are they trying to teach kids, this like demonic stuff in pop music? Why are they promoting sexuality at such a young age? Why are they, the porn industry is getting so dark? Why are, politicians like always getting caught doing corrupt things and not getting caught or not facing any consequences? If you look at the degradation of society, how they want to teach, kids of all different colors, like that person is racist, they were born racist, they're a terrible human being, and to teach other kids that they're less than. What is going on? This is a symptoms of a very mad world that we're living in. You and I, we believe everybody has a potential to be a beautiful soul, and that road is different for everyone. You take on yoga, I take on holistic health in a different way. People are, musical geniuses. Everybody has a purpose on this earth. But why is it that we're catering to or pushing people into such a low vibration by keeping everybody divided? It saddens my soul. But I also know that if they had all the power, these dark forces, then they wouldn't need to do all this stuff. Then the game would be already over, and we would just be like, oh, we give up. But the fact that there's so many people waking up day by day, like minute by minute, like it is just incredible. And when I talk to people, there's so many people like us. So I would never, for anyone listening who feels like they're censored or they're not being heard, or the people that they love to listen to are being censored, it's just optics. What it's trying to do is to keep you away from speaking to groups of people that are similar mindset, that want love, that want to build a better world. But it's people, control freaks, that are very, very scared right now, and they're trying to do whatever they can, create every kind of fear monger possible in order to get their way, and every kind of corruption possible. And it's very apparent. I truly believe that most people are amazing beings. They want to do better for their life, for their family. They want other people to succeed. And I think they have very few people in positions of power that are steering our society in a very dangerous place. But I think that more and more people are waking up, and people are realizing this is all nonsense.
Yeah, it's so desperate looking, isn't it? We're going to censor you. We're going to censor you. We're going to burn the books. It's so sickly desperate. It's
pathetic, is what it is.
It's pretty silly. And I embrace any darkness that comes with us not being able to realize that. If we can't realize the sick desperation that they're in, it's possible, bro, that they could collapse under their own weight from the Hail Mary pass they're throwing now.
It's happening. If you look at what happened to the governor of New York, right? I still think that's a little bit of a smokescreen, because everybody knew about this last year. I mean, I was posting about all the shit that he was being accused of, and but at the same time, he also killed a bunch of people in nursing homes, and he was involved in all other types of corruption, like second generation politician Cuomo, and the most like controlling person. He wanted to shut down everything in New York. He killed tens of thousands of people in nursing homes, and not a word. And he was hailed as some kind of fucking hero, right? Like, but these are the types of people that are going to be, the light's going to be shine on them, and people are going to realize that they were following people who didn't have their best interest at heart. Not only that, they were serving a darker agenda.
Yeah, I feel the occult nature of it in this way. The messages of fear, I teach people to look at their spine as a massive, massive gift. We are an upright ape. Our horizontal spines cannot face the heavens and the center of the earth. We can take advantage of the movement of energy in the chakras in a way that an animal can't use for self-realization. They don't change their nature, right? So look at what's happened. We've been isolated from one another, which you're very kinesthetic. You already said you love to hug everyone, you touch, it's a big part of your life. Everything that has been messaged to us has been about fear, and that's keeping our energy in the root chakra. It's keeping it low. We're not able to feel a sense of self in relationship to non-self. We can't feel self-acceptance or self-love. We can't speak the truth because there's so much information. We don't know what the truth is. We don't know our nature because we're so imbalanced between our male and female energies, right? So it's all about a backwards. I think we have been hacked by our need to feel important and our need to be feeling like we matter in the hierarchy. So I am embarrassed, like times where I've been someone just spitting off the talking points on the environment or a political party and not really knowing the depth of the issue and not being well versed, but just having to defend my position or wanting to look intelligent to be in that room and spit off someone else's talking points where I don't know the nuances of something like that. And I don't have the real facts or the data. I can't speak deeply about it, but here I am acting like I can. So that has been exploited in a very structured way. And as you say, people perhaps are naturally waking up. Heat and pain is a transformational thing. So maybe we've been such in a fog, as you said before, by the pornography, the drinking, the chasing money, putting our awareness in the wrong things as a culture, that as we strip away some of this materialism, we can begin the movement of energy up the chakras and take to these spiritual practices, of which are so varied. Like there's so many paths, there's innumerable paths to reclaim the space in your mind. But I think we've done some collective mind damage. We have really descended into a dark night. And that's where the acceptance is the only thing that gives me peace. And while there is still a chance to pursue freedom, to focus on creativity is channeling the energy of God. It's channeling the field of all possibilities. It's channeling the I am Brahman mantra. It's the doorway into the best art that can possibly be conceived of. It's all coming from the source, right? So to create helps me get into the God nature. And I'm being drawn, like I'm going to take 10 days. I'm going to come to New York to work for 5, and then go to the beach for 5, and then take 10 days to orient myself again in a really focused way, shine all of the light from my practice. My clients know not to call me. My students know I'm on break. And to channel into what are my priorities and to line up with the creative principle. Like I feel I'm yearning for well-placed ink on paper, like to put my thoughts into about what it means to be a healthy man, right? To put that into a book and that someone can have, even if it sells 500 copies, that's 500 copies of 500 people that benefited, right? And when you change one person's life in a positive way, you change the whole universe going forward. So
yeah, because you are the universe.
You are the universe, right? And the refractory effect that has on all other living beings is immeasurable. So creativity, I think, is the antidote. Creativity and adventure. Back to the Anil Gupta tattoo. I have a triad: creativity, adventure, and romance. Look for the romance, even with yourself, even if you have to embrace yourself, but move through the darkness. The creativity is the force that is opposing the darkness. The light, Anand, the fourth dimension, I believe, is the technology that we're creating, like the VR, or it's also the technology of consciousness, but it's a transition to where we are not going to recognize the world at 2050 and 2100. It's going to be like, just like people in 1908 can recognize the New York now, because they were running around in horse and buggy with piles of horse poop on the sidewalks everywhere. There's so many disruptive technologies coming that it's going to be a transformational world in 10 years, 30 years, 50 years, 100 years. So I feel like this is Sapiens' last stand to say, am I in the future, or is the future shaped by a few who want to create a whole nother? There's never been, the reason this war is dangerous is because it involves the whole planet and freedom, not in one region. This war shapes what we are for the future, right? Yeah. And that's why it's so structured and so planned out.
Yeah, and what availability, what potential lives that our future generations have. When everything is controlled by very few, then by succumbing to it, by just going along with it, then we're affecting our futures as well. So it is humanity's last stand. And the point that you're making about creativity, I always when people ask me, like, how do you get through it, it's like I say you have to spend time doing the inner work, but I also have to give myself the same advice. Like, it's so important, because when you're just automatically going to be affected by everything that's going on right now. And it's heavy, man. It's a heavy fucking time. And, I have to really pay attention and focus on not letting it get the best of me, because, I'm getting like messages from all my friends. Oh, this is going on. They're doing this. It's like, how do you not care about what's happening in society and the freedoms that are being pulled away from us, but then also not being inundated? That is like the true question. And I haven't figured out the right balance yet. But really what I'm focusing in on now is doing the things that bring me the most happiness, and also doing things that go according to my purpose and my values. So I won't ever stand down to tyranny. I will always speak in love. I will always be speaking in human connection, and I will not be muzzled when it comes to those things. But also going in nature by myself for a walk with my girlfriend, spending time with her, with quality time. Not time in front of the TV or anything like that, but doing things that just bring me simple happiness. Just going for a walk, seeing water, spending time in trees, going to the beach, talking to my friends. That are the things that are kind of grounding me. And then also seeing my clients and helping them in their journeys and recovery, stress relief, in pain relief, athletic recovery, and seeing my clients come out of an experience completely refreshed. I know that I'm doing good work in this world, because it's helping people on such a great level, mentally, physically, and spiritually, whether they conscious about it or not. But I know that I'm living my purpose, and that's really all I can ask for. I'm limited in the things I can do for the world, the universe, whatever it is. Like, just every single day, if I can vibrate with love and contribution and human connection, then I'm doing what I need to do. And not, it's important for people like yourself and I, and so many people listening who are of the same mindset, not to get into the mode of like you're carrying the world on your shoulders, because it could feel like that to so many of us. But it's one of those things. Just know that you have a community, and another great thing to do is to find that community. Find the people that resonate that same love frequency as you, and get together with them and speak to them, and see what you guys can come up with together and create in this world.
Yeah, I want to talk about the modalities at your wellness spa in a minute, but I want to share something about being in a new town and connecting with people. Our lives have become so politicized that it's almost could be the first thing you lead with. And it's so negative no matter what side you're on. It's so like makes people's blood boil, that since I moved, I disengage from that at all, and just shine light, shine love, and inquire about them. I take a sincere interest in the people around me. Mm-hmm. And it's caused a lot of peace of mind. And then if it gets to the state of the world, I acknowledge the difficulty that we're all going through together. But to not make it a focus. And I really wonder how much I have to ignore it or how much I have to face it. But I don't want it to engulf my life, because I think we have to remember, and this is where Sang helps me a lot with her ideas about how we should spend the weekend. Like, you should still be having fun. You should still be doing those walks with Kate. You should be going hiking, right? We can forget that with all of the stress that we're told to worry about, that your nervous system gets just jacked up on fear and anxiety, and you miss out on experiences that draw you fully in alignment with the flow of time and the universe. So keep up those things, and the work at Om Life is cutting edge modalities. So I'm in the method of teaching, I believe in structured experiments, right? So one woman just came to me and she's like, I've never tried veganism. I heard on your podcast that you talked about how when you did it, you felt universal compassion to the point that you were in tears in a forward bend, like just from a mantra. And before doing veganism, I want to experiment with that. How do I do it? And I give her a structure. I give her 40 days. This is how you build up to it. These are the tricks for the tough days. This is the planning you're going to have to do. And tell me about what was the genesis of that idea and how you picked each modality, because those are things I didn't get much of a chance, except the cold plunge. Cold and heat have been in my game for a long time. Some of the light therapies and the myofascial massage and what the floats. Tell me about the spa and the work of what goes on there if someone's not feeling well and they want to plug back into themselves.
Yeah, so my origin story is pretty simple. Like my parents were doctors. My sister's a doctor, and then my other sister is an
Indian
Ayurvedic.
doctors? Well, hold on. This is so unusual.
Yeah, and then my other sister.
Fetus until it becomes a doctor.
Yeah, so my other sister is, she went the other route and she became an Ayurvedic doctor. So I got to see the whole spectrum, or one angle of health, or two angles of health, and I realized that being proactive about your health is really the only way to ensure a quality of life that most people would deem ideal. So I was an athlete growing up, so I was into like the ice bats for my feet and all this kind of stuff, and looking at different ways to enhance my athleticism. So I started doing yoga in my 20s, and then meditation. So really much into the biohacking stuff through Tim Ferriss and Dave Asprey. I learned about supplementation, and just kept going with it. And then I always knew that at some point I wanted to create a center that housed all these different healing modalities, are all holistic, and the top modalities that I can find, and something that's going to always constantly evolve to the times, and bringing about like a marriage between ancient knowledge and new technology. So, and then to also bring a community together of like-minded people who wanted to heal themselves, so they can go out and make a positive ripple in the world. Because once you heal yourself, then you can affect the universe of people around you. So these were all ideas that I had. Self-development obviously was a big thing for me. Plant medicine, having this ayahuasca experience back in 2014, that shattered my ego into a billion pieces. And as it was coming back together, it showed me that, hey, listen, you had this idea for a long time. What the fuck are you waiting for? You're not living your purpose. Then what are you going to do? And it showed me a whole timeline, one scenario of my life. If I didn't live my purpose and just did the things that I needed to do to make money and to have all these external things, but not have inner fulfillment. And it showed me growing up and becoming an old man, dying alone on my deathbed with no fulfillment. And I was like, okay, I don't want to go that route. And then it showed me the other path. And if I were to go and actually take the steps to take a lot of risk, actually, and to give up what I knew at the time, and to go in this path of helping others through holistic modalities, it showed me living a very happy life, very fulfilled life. And that was such a important part of my life, that ayahuasca experience. Is like my life before that, and then my life after that because I decided, okay, I'm going to go for broke. I liquidated a lot of my assets. I borrowed a bunch of money. I started this journey. It took me about 2 years to open up this center. That was from like 2015 all the way to 2017. And then it's been 3.5 years now, coming on 4 years now. And we've seen over 6,000 people come through here, helping them with all different types of things. We really focus in on athletic recovery, stress management, pain relief. And, a lot of people come for the spiritual aspect too. But, some of the, most popular therapies that we have is zero gravity floatation therapy, which is unlike anything that you'll ever experience other than floating in outer space. I don't know if you saw like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk recently, or not Elon, Richard Branson go out in space and, do their little zero gravity experience for like 30 seconds. You can have an hour in zero gravity experience in a flotation tank. It's kind of like the Dead Sea. There's 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt with 10 inches of water, and it's the same water temperature as your outside skin temperature. So you forget your body, and it's just you're floating in this pool of nothingness. So your body and the water just merge into one. And in that state, if you're going to totally relax your body, but if you're able to relax your mind, then you enter what they call theta state, which is the most deeply meditative state that you can get into in your brain waves. And really magical things happen in one float experience. Stress levels will drop, your cortisol levels will drop. Scientifically proven to decrease anxiety and depression after one float. So it is something that is unreplicatable anywhere else in the world. So we do that. That's the most popular. We do whole body cryotherapy, which is a 3-minute hypercooling treatment designed to lower inflammation in the body, recirculate your blood and lymphatic system. Afterwards, you burn about 600, 800 calories in 3 minutes, and you feel like you're on top of the world. You have this endorphin rush, and you feel great. And then we do infrared saunas. We do Normatec, which is an air compression massage. We do hypnosis as well as Reiki and fascial stretch therapy and CBD oil massages. And we're constantly evolving. So we're growing into different modalities, and we're doing a lot more events like cacao ceremonies and Reiki sessions and all these kind of things. So, it's an exercise for me in experimentation. It's like a biohacking facility where I get to experience a lot of different things, see what works, bring it into the center. Maybe some things work for a little bit of time, some things work for no duration. But I love the fact that every day is different, and I get to have the most beautiful interactions with people that are coming through my center.
Yeah, it's interesting how much we can shift our awareness of the spirit or awareness of awareness when we are whole and taken care of and put back together. When in reality, most of life, we're running from one place to the next. Or before 2019, before 2020, people were sped up and highly caffeinated, right? So the yoga heals digestion. The yoga that I teach heals digestion, fixes digestion, which heals most diseases. And ridding the body of disease frees you from the distraction of your health, from negative health. Negative health affects your hormones, your endocrine system. You're literally in a fog, in a cloud, right? So part of feeling happier is the care that you're giving, and that recovery you do is really cool. I only did cryo once. And I think the float is so fascinating because not everyone is a fit for psychedelics like ayahuasca. It can take them from 0 to 1 million in 3 seconds. And that kind of opening and that openness, like you're naturally open because you've been doing personal development work. So for those listening, these things must be approached with great caution. I do a lot of teaching safely in combination with a mild psychedelic, cannabis, now that medical is available, and getting people plugged into the system where they can dose themselves properly or use even ratios of THC to CBD. Those are really cool spaces where when you combine a deep yoga practice with a little natural cannabinoid that increases your focus. Like these are doorways safely. But I think a lot of spirituality is actually in the mundane. Like Jordan Peterson says, clean your room, make your bed, you know, take care of your health, question your ideas.
Yeah, everything is sacred. So you want to treat every aspect of your life as sacred, every interaction with yourself and with others.
Absolutely. So what else are you doing? Like for me, am I disengaging too much? I mean, when you came up, we were joking at the big 10-acre place I lived that was all grown in, like no one's in a mask, right? Like in a way, I'm sheltered from some of it. And it's only when I tune into, this is what's bizarre. I go, where is the pandemic? The pandemic's in my phone. I had a tough time switching my business to a digital business. Like that was not easy. That was totally transformational. People grew to love working with me digitally, but I had to adapt to it. I thought it was inferior. Like I still have doubts about an online yoga teacher training because in my mind, I'm like, that stuff has to be transmitted in the energy of the master. It has to be transmitted in person. You have to touch them physically to teach them how to align themselves. And so that was really brutal, hard work. But at this point, it's kind of moving along. And I wonder, like, when something really intense happens, will I hear about it? But do I not need to follow it? Like, how do you balance your spiritual practice with like all of these channels that we used to follow some of the same people, but I've basically lately unfollowed like things that were making me feel too extreme or too jacked up. It's basically like the meme warfare. It triggers me really fast. It's so perfect. Like when they nail something with humor and you're like, oh, that's what it's about. Meme warfare is crazy.
Memes have changed the game, man. It's insane. It's so funny. It's so witty, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you know, there is the thing where you become too inundated and you want to know every little thing. But at the end of the day, like if you're somewhat aware of what's going on, is there anything really going to change that drastically that you need to check your phone every 5 minutes? So what I would say to that is like you're right. The pandemic is in the phone. It's in the mind. And, you know, there's some people who live out in nature. You live on 10 acres and it doesn't have to exist, you know? You can enjoy your experience, disconnect from it all, and focus on positivity and creativity, which you did. And I'm sure life is a lot more meaningful doing it that way versus, you know, living in the city and having all these like restrictions being put on businesses and restaurants and, you know, mask mandates and all these things. It's a scary world out there, but yeah, it's the question is how do you swim through it? How do you navigate it? Living in a major city, trying to connect with spirit and be creative when you're being bombarded by it all the time with, you know, so many different things. So you know, to each their own. I would say that. Like if I was up there in Hudson, New York, and you know, on 10 acres, like I would be relishing in that experience because, you know, you lived in the city before, you know how it is, and might as well enjoy it without bothering yourself because again, it doesn't exist up there.
It's the fact that I'm an empath though. So my friend Alyssa Gruber really called me out on something. I really sense into and feel into other people's pain. And it comes from growing up around poverty and seeing actually, like I went back to Guyana when I was 13. And I asked my mother, I went to play with a boy I used to play with when I lived there. And I went out to play with him and I thought he was messed up because he looked so young. I didn't know in my 13-year-old brain what was going on. But now that I'm an adult, he was malnourished. He wasn't getting any of the protein that I was getting in America. So he was super like skinny. And I said, what's wrong? I said to my mother, what's wrong with the Aubrey? Like, why is he can't keep up? And she had no answer, but I can see now. So I feel into the swells. Like when I go to India and I feel everything, the suffering intensely, and it affects me. I was the first trip to India, I was super depressed for a few days, and my friend who took me, he was celebrating becoming a doctor. His father, I went with him and his father. And his father was laughing at me. He's like, basically, like, grow up. Like, this is a large part of the world. Like, this is the way it is. And Alyssa said to me, you know, you can acknowledge people's pain, but it doesn't have to be yours all the time. She was very direct. And since she did that on the podcast, actually, and it stayed with me. And I've been controlling my emotions better. I'm like, I see that that's their experience, and I see that this is the experience as a servant of God and the universe my whole life. I've never sold out. I've always stayed true to the path, as painful as it was, as good as the up times financially were, as bad as the down times were. Like, I stayed on track. This is where the universe wants to place me during the epic war between battle of darkness and light. Why can't I embrace it? Why can't I? I've been building a life with my partner that is a life, even though it seems like life is falling apart. It seems like everything is coming undone, and we're furniture shopping. We're like, okay, what dressers do we need, and where does this go? And the forks, they came in from Amazon, honey. You go pick them up from the porch. Like I'm like, why not? What else? What am I going to do? Freak out that there are mandates? Like,
there's so much beauty in this world.
There's so much beauty.
And in people, it's just because we're watching the news, because we're listening to, some controllers that want to create this shade on this planet. But at the end of the day, like, if we weren't tuning in to their system, would we even have this nuisance on our shoulders and our minds? It's a crazy world, and really focusing on what makes you happy. That's what we want to sign up for. And like you said, it's like, what better time to show up than now? And if you can, during the hard times, if you can breathe, take real deep breaths, and smile through any of the hardships, like, that's what it's all about. That's how we get through it, one moment at a time, one scenario at a time, one challenge, one obstacle. There was times in my business where, oh my goodness, it was like I was working 16-hour days. There was like tears in my eyes because I was like so overwhelmed. But, I just decided, okay, just breathe through it. Remember your North Star. Remember what you're doing this for. And then you start getting that sense of gratitude. Like, when I went to India, I've been there many times, but it's always a lesson in perspective. It's like, I tell myself, how dare you complain about anything in your life when you see some people struggle? And the fact that they struggle, some people live on the streets, but they got a smile on their face many times. It really, really hits me hard, man. Like, you see the craziest shit in India, okay? So wow. I call it a symphony of chaos. It's like a psychedelic experience. If people have not visited India, go fucking visit India, because it will set you straight, right? So I was in Bombay, and I was driving. My cousin was driving, and we were on this highway, mind you, right? So there's this guy, I shit you not, he's got no legs, and he's just walking with his arms. He's walking across the highway with just his arms. And people are like, just driving along like 60 miles an hour. He's just like stopping when he needs to. He's going, he's figuring like people are just going to move out of the way. Like, honestly, that would be the scariest moment of my life if I had to do that. And I swear to God, I think I saw like one truck drive over him, and like he was elevated, or sorry, the truck was elevated, so it didn't hit him, but he just kept going. It's like, this guy,
unbelievable stuff like
life,
that. Man. To be born into a womb in a different place in a different time. It is incredible how fortunate we are that we live in this country. And I am going to hang the American flag, even if it's a myth, the United States of America. I'm going to go to Walmart or Home Depot and find a flag for the house once it's done, once the outside's done and they build my deck. and on the mailbox, because I'm grateful for my family escaped dictatorship, where poverty, serious poverty, like we barely got by sometimes when I was young. And I'm grateful that even though I'm the latest iteration of my father, that I got to travel the world freely, that I got to do my dream job. Like I got to be resonant with the people. I can pick up the phone or text or an email or a DM and say, I'd like to have a conversation with you about your book or your work. They would feel in vibration enough with me to say yes. And I get to have these conversations. Like these doors just open. Like the gratitude I have to the country. I don't feel we are the United States anymore. It's splitting apart in some ways, but the symbol, even though we have been corrupt, even though we have used the military improperly to oppress people, even though we've been in the darkness, the fact that you can bust your hump and get somewhere if you are focused, to have a country like that is amazing. So the flag is still a symbol to me, and it's weird to be an immigrant with so much respect and reverence for the country, but it's full of opportunity even to this day. As much as people complain about it, as much as they see it as systemically fraught, they're not aware that if they were to go to a dictatorship or a communist country, that you don't have the luxury of speaking up against your government. You don't have a voice. You are punished in generations. It's where Sang is from, Korea, North Korea. Your generational pain comes. They punish your children and their children's children if you just disagree. That's the level of draconian control. And so the flag is a symbol of the freedom to have a dream and pursue it. And I feel like for the first half of my life, I've been pursuing and learning. And this half of my life now, I'm in a generative phase of how can I offer this and spin this back, like to the 16-year-old kid I'm about to coach, right? I set it up with his father. This is what you need to tell him, so I have the requisite leverage to influence him to do a daily practice, to view his life as an adventure, as a game, as a way to enhance possibilities and not just fall slave to routine or fall slave to negative tendencies. So it's all a matter of, looking at things properly, and yoga helps me to see things as they are. With each year that I live, I get more humble. There's more that I don't know. There's more that I'm willing to revise and put under the microscope again. And the beginner's mind is always coming back to me. People are asking for more leadership, but this 10-day break that I'm going to be on to fill my own well is the main goal of it. My teacher, Sharon Gannon, used to say something that resonates well with me right now, which is be love itself. Be love itself. Like when I meet people in town now, like I said, they're more than their politics. They're moms. They have their children they want to take care of. Their dad's trying to put food on the table. They're regular, good, working class people. Who cares about their politics? Let it be secondary, and focus on being a loving yoga teacher that's in their village, and a massage therapist, and a guy that can guide spiritually. Be there as a resource, and put your views aside, because they may be the last thing people should get to know about you. Maybe there's other ways to lead with being love itself.
It's a beautiful, beautiful way to put it. It's the answer for everything. Just be love, be in a state, be in a vibration.
Be
love. That's
brilliant.
it. Be love to yourself, especially because we don't, a lot of times, many of us don't give ourselves that love or that time that it's needed to really feel into it. Be love for the people that you love the most around you. Be love to people you work with. Be love to strangers. What better exercise in unconditional love than to love somebody that you don't even know?
Yeah, beautiful. So I feel like that's a nice bow on this conversation. Is there anything else you want to mention before you share your site and your handles and how people can reach you, and share a little bit about your podcast before we sign off?
Yeah, no, just so much gratitude for you and appreciation. I love talking to you, man. I love spending time with you. So
you got to come up here. You got to come up here in September when the house is done. This is my office, but I'm going to put a bed in it, and back there, like it's still we're right by the Hudson. There's a lot of you and Kate would love this area. There's so many cool things to do.
Beautiful. I'm definitely down. Yeah, the only thing I want to plug is Om Life, obviously my wellness center, www.om.life. We talked about earlier in the podcast. If you guys are in the Jersey City area, come on by. We'd love to host you. And then also my podcast. It's called the Limitless One Podcast. I have about 39 episodes, I believe, at this point. So I started in the fall of last year, and it's just an exploration of consciousness, talking to people who are living a limitless life in whatever field, whatever avenue that they've dedicated their lives to. There's so many great thought leaders, and I encourage you to check it out. It's just Limitless One Podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and my website is Anand, my first name, and.life. There's no .com or anything at the end. It's just Anand.life. And you can check out more of me there. I'm into a lot of different interests. So I'm always looking to talk to people who are loving life, contributing, and kicking some butt.
Kicking some butt. Lovingly.
Lovingly.
Be love itself. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for tuning in today, guys. You can check out Anand Spa in Jersey City, New Jersey, Om Life Wellness. You can listen to his podcast on Apple iTunes or Spotify or all of the platforms where podcasts are hosted. It's the Limitless One Podcast, and you can reach out to me on my website for daily classes, digital products, and trainings at jaisugrim.com. You can also show your support for this podcast by going to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jai Sugrim. You'll see 4 levels of membership that come with exclusive member benefits. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please share this podcast with your community and anyone who would enjoy the discussion. Thank you so much. Have an amazing, amazing day.